Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time, way back, to a Paris that's more gas lamps and grit than Eiffel Tower glitter. We're going to spend a day from the first gray light of dawn to the deep dreaming hours as a bookbinder in the bustling, often grimy heart of the 19th century. You'll smell the leather, hear the clang of tools, and feel the methodical rhythm of a craft that was both art and industry. Fair warning, though, this isn't a stroll through a picturesque postcard. You'll likely encounter more historical facts and forgotten details than you ever thought possible. And frankly, you probably won't survive the sheer volume of information if you're not ready for some serious relaxation. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You feel it before you see it. The subtle shift from profound darkness to a murky, bruised gray. It's not the sharp, clean light of a modern morning, but a slow, reluctant bleed of dawn through the tiny, often grimy window of your cramped attic room. The air is cool, carrying the damp scent of yesterday's rain and the faint, ever-present aroma of horse dung from the cobbled street below. Your bed, a straw mattress on a simple wooden frame, offers little comfort, but it's enough. You stretch a deep, bone-creaking stretch that feels as old as the city itself, and your eyes adjust to the gloom. The sounds begin to filter in, not in a gentle chorus, but as a discordant symphony of awakening Paris. The rhythmic clatter of milk carts over cobblestones, the distant mournful cry of a street vendor, and the insistent crowing of a rooster, even here in the heart of the city, all serve as your unyielding alarm clock. You shiver, pulling a coarse wool blanket tighter for a moment, wishing for just 5 more minutes of oblivion. But time is a luxury you can't afford, especially not today, or any day in this demanding city. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, feeling the cold wooden floor beneath your bare feet. A quick splash of cool water from a ceramic basin on a makeshift stand serves as your morning ablutions. No hot running water here, no luxurious soaps, just a brisk, shocking wake-up call to your senses. You pull on your rough linen shirt, the fabric a little stiff, a little worn, followed by breeches that have seen better days. Your boots, well worn and sturdy, are a familiar comfort, a protective shield against the city's endless muck. You descend the narrow, creaking stairs, the scent of stale bread and brewing chicory coffee wafting up from the floor below. Your landlady, a stoic woman with hands gnarled from years of laundry work, is already stirring. A quick nod, a mumbled greeting, and you find yourself in the tiny communal kitchen. Breakfast is a simple affair, a chunk of hard bread dipped in lukewarm coffee, and maybe, if you're lucky, a sliver of cheese. It's fuel, not pleasure, designed to get you through the first few hours of relentless work. Historians still argue whether the widespread consumption of chicory during this period was purely an economic necessity, or if Parisians genuinely developed a taste for its bitter notes. Personally, you'd rather have a real coffee, but beggars can't be choosers, right? As you finish your meager meal, you think about the day ahead. You're an apprentice bookbinder, and your days are long, arduous, and filled with the methodical dance of leather paper and paste. It's a craft that demands patience, precision, and an almost superhuman attention to detail. You recall a quirky tidbit you overheard in the workshop. Some master binders swear by adding a drop of their own blood to the glue pot for good luck and stronger bonds. You've never seen it done, and you hope you never do, because honestly, that just sounds like a hygiene nightmare waiting to happen. The truth is, the fundamental process of bookbinding, which has been around for centuries, involves taking disparate sheets of paper and transforming them into a coherent, durable object, a vessel for knowledge and stories. It's a small, quiet act of creation, yet one that underpins the entire intellectual life of Paris. The sun is a little higher now, casting long, distorted shadows across the alleyways outside. The city is awake in earnest, its cacophony growing. The cries of vendors hawking their wares blend with the rumble of carriages, the clip-clop of horses, and the incessant chatter of a million lives unfolding. You take a deep breath, steeling yourself for the chaos, and step out into the burgeoning morning of 19th century Paris. The journey to the workshop is a daily ritual, a winding path through narrow, crowded streets that are a sensory overload. You navigate around overflowing refuse bins, dodge horse-drawn carts laden with goods, and sidestep puddles of dubious origin. The air is thick with the smells of baking bread, cheap tobacco, unwashed bodies, and the ever-present stench of the Seine, which, let's be honest, was more of an open sewer back then. You pass by cramped market stalls, where haggling is an Olympic sport, and street performers try to eke out a living with juggling acts or questionable musical performances. You even catch a glimpse of a woman selling live eels from a bucket, their slimy bodies writhing. It's a reminder that survival in this city is a constant hustle, a relentless grind. The city's pulse beats fast and hard, and you are just one small cog in its immense, intricate machinery. You pull your collar up a bit, trying to avoid the spray from a passing carriage wheel and quicken your pace. The workshop awaits. The journey through the waking city is a daily gauntlet, a symphony of chaos that assaults your senses. You pick your way through the narrow, twisting streets, a labyrinth of ancient buildings, leaning precariously over cobblestone paths. The air is thick, a heady mix of fresh bread from the bakeries, the acrid scent of coal smoke curling from chimneys, and the less pleasant tang of the open drains that crisscross the thoroughfares. Horse-drawn omnibuses clatter past their heavy wheels, throwing up sprays of mud and debris, forcing you to flatten yourself against grimy walls. Pedestrians jostle for space, a constant swirling current of humanity. Merchants with handcarts piled high with goods, elegantly dressed ladies with parasols, navigating the muck with surprising grace, and street urchins darting through the crowd like quicksilver. You pass by a busy cafe, its doors already open, the aroma of strong coffee and croissants spilling out onto the street. Inside, a few early risers are hunched over newspapers, discussing the latest political upheavals, or perhaps just the price of grain. You can almost feel the collective hum of gossip and debate emanating from within. A group of washerwomen, their arms already reddened from the cold water, are on their way to the Seine, their laughter echoing a little too loudly in the morning air. It's a vibrant, living city, even if it's also a bit pungent. You try to avoid making eye contact with the various street vendors, knowing that even a fleeting glance could lead to an aggressive sales pitch for everything from hot chestnuts to dubious elixirs. One particularly persistent fellow is trying to sell miracle tooth powder made from pulverized cuttlefish bone, you just shake your head thinking of the poor cuttlefish and how even in death it can't escape the entrepreneurial spirit of Paris. Finally, after what feels like a minor odyssey, you turn down a slightly quieter side street. The buildings here are a little more sedate, perhaps a little older, their facades marked by centuries of rain and grime. A large wooden door painted a faded green with a small, unassuming sign above it marks your destination, the Bindery. It's not a grand establishment, certainly not one catering to the wealthiest patrons on Rue de la Paix, but it's reputable, known for its solid craftsmanship and reliability. As you push open the heavy door, a different world envelops you. The immediate chaos of the street fades, replaced by the hushed, almost reverent atmosphere of the workshop. The air inside is warm, a comforting blend of the earthy scent of leather, the faint sweetness of paste, and the metallic tang of heated tools. Dust motes dance in the shafts of light filtering through the high, grimy windows, illuminating the various workstations. The bindery isn't enormous. It's a long, narrow room filled with sturdy wooden benches and presses. At one end, near the windows for better light, are the stations for cutting and folding. Further back, where the light is a little less critical, are the areas for sewing, rounding, and backing. Towards the rear, near a small, perpetually simmering stove, is the finishing area with its specialized tools for gilding and ornamentation. You nod to your fellow apprentices already, hard at work. There are usually 2 or 3 apprentices at various stages of their training, along with a journeyman or 2, and of course the master himself. Today, Jean-Pierre, the most senior apprentice, is already at the cutting press, his muscles straining as he operates the heavy lever. Marie, a younger apprentice, is carefully folding sheets of paper, her brow furrowed in concentration. The master, Monsieur Dubois, a man whose hands are as scarred and calloused as the oldest leather he works with, is already at his own bench, meticulously applying gold leaf to a delicate spine. You walk to your assigned station, a simple wooden bench worn smooth by generations of hands. Your tools are laid out neatly: a bone folder, a sharp paring knife, a steel ruler, and a simple sewing frame. These are the extensions of your hands, the instruments through which you transform raw materials into works of art. You hang your worn coat on a peg, roll up your sleeves, and take a deep breath. The workday has begun. Historians still argue whether the apprentice system, so prevalent in crafts like bookbinding, truly fostered a meritocracy or merely perpetuated social hierarchies. Some argue it allowed talented individuals from humbler backgrounds to rise, while others suggest it often kept workers in a state of perpetual subservience. You, however, are simply focused on the present. You pick up a ream of freshly printed sheets, their edges still rough from the press. Your first task of the day, as always, is folding. Each sheet, a potential page in a book, must be folded with absolute precision. No wrinkles, no misalignments. A single error can ripple through the entire binding process, leading to a warped or uneven book. It's a seemingly simple task, but it demands an almost meditative focus. You begin to fold, the crisp sound of paper creasing under the smooth edge of your bone folder, becoming a rhythmic counterpoint to the quiet industry of the workshop. It's surprisingly satisfying, this transformation of flat sheets into neat, organized signatures, small bundles of folded pages that will eventually be sewn together. You think of a quirky tidbit you heard from an old journeyman. Apparently, some printers would deliberately put tiny, almost imperceptible flaws in the margins of their sheets, just to see if the binders were paying enough attention during folding. It sounds like a rather elaborate and annoying way to test someone's dedication, but then again, these are books, and perfection is the goal. The hours pass in this quiet industry. The initial folding gives way to gathering, where the folded signatures are arranged in the correct order, ensuring the narrative flows seamlessly. Then comes sewing, a truly crucial step. You meticulously stitch the gathered signatures onto raised cords or tapes, using a sewing frame, creating the foundational block of the book. It's a repetitive motion, the needle piercing paper looping around the cords, pulling tight. Your fingers become nimble almost instinctively, finding the right tension. You learn to read the paper, feeling its resistance, anticipating its give. This is where the book truly begins to take shape, moving from a collection of individual parts to a unified whole. This systematic approach to book production, a hallmark of the 19th century, was a mainstream historical fact, allowing for greater standardization and output compared to earlier, more artisanal methods. It was the Industrial Revolution's quiet touch on the world of words. You are deep into the rhythm of the workshop. Now the morning's initial chill having long since dissipated, replaced by the gentle warmth of industry and the quiet hum of concentration. Your first task, the precise and repetitive folding of sheets, is behind you, and you've moved on to the equally crucial process of gathering and sewing. This is where the book truly begins to assert its physical form, no longer a mere stack of printed pages, but a coherent block of knowledge. The air around you is thick with the scent of paper and the fainter earthy aroma of leather, which you know will soon take center stage. Sunlight, now brighter, streams through the large dust-mottled windows, illuminating the countless motes dancing in the air, each one a tiny particle of history. Your hands, surprisingly nimble for their youth move, with practiced efficiency, guided by the countless hours you've already spent at this bench, you pick up the gathered signatures, the individual bundles of folded pages, and arrange them on the sewing frame. This simple wooden contraption with its vertical cords stretched taut is the backbone of your work. You select a length of strong linen thread, waxing it lightly with a block of beeswax to give it extra strength and to prevent tangling. It's a small detail, but in bookbinding every detail matters. You begin the intricate dance of the needle, pushing it through the spine folds of the signatures, looping it around the sewing cords, pulling it taut. Thwip, pull, thwip, pull. The sound is soft, almost imperceptible, lost beneath the low murmur of conversation and the occasional clang of tools from other parts of the workshop. Each stitch must be consistent, each section firmly attached. If the sewing is poor, the book will be weak-prone to falling apart with time and use. It's a lesson learned early. Shoddy work now means a dissatisfied customer later, and in this trade, reputation is everything. You observe the other apprentices, each absorbed in their own tasks. Marie, the youngest, is struggling slightly with the paring knife, trying to achieve the perfectly thin edges required for a fine leather cover. Jean-Pierre, the senior apprentice, is expertly applying paste to the spine of a book block, his movements fluid and confident. He's nearing the end of his apprenticeship, and the master, Monsieur Dubois, clearly sees him as a future asset, perhaps even a potential successor. There's a quiet rivalry, a subtle competition among you, fueled by the desire to earn the master's approval and to one day achieve the coveted status of journeyman. You hear Monsieur Dubois giving instructions to one of the journeymen, his voice a low rumble. He's speaking about the importance of using only the finest quality adhesives, not the cheaper, watered-down variety, sometimes employed by less scrupulous binders. A good book, he says, his voice carrying just enough for you to hear, is built to last for generations. Its strength is in its bones, its spirit in its contents, and its beauty in its skin. It's a mainstream historical fact that the quality of materials, particularly adhesives and leathers, varied wildly across different binderies, directly impacting the longevity of the finished books. This was a constant battle between quality and cost. A gentle sigh escapes you as you continue sewing. It's a physically demanding task, too, requiring sustained focus and fine motor control. Your back aches slightly, and your fingers are beginning to feel the familiar tenderness of repeated needlework. You shift on your stool, trying to find a more comfortable position. You recall a quirky tidbit a journeyman once shared about how some of the very old binders used to believe that the spirits of the authors themselves resided within the pages, and that careful sewing was a way of respecting and containing their essence. It sounds a bit like old wives' tales, but you can appreciate the sentiment behind it. The idea that books are more than just paper and ink. Historians still argue whether the meticulous hand-sewn methods of the 19th century were truly superior to the machine sewing techniques that began to emerge later in the century, or if the perceived superiority was merely a romanticized view of handcraft. For now, you know only the hand method, and you strive for perfection with every stitch. You finish one book block, carefully removing it from the sewing frame. The sewn sections form a sturdy, flexible block ready for the next stages. The spine, still exposed with the sewing cord showing, is now a testament to your patience and skill. You place it carefully on a stack with other completed blocks, noting the specific commission it belongs to. Each book has a story, not just within its pages, but in its creation in the hands that touch it, in the journey it takes from raw material to finished product. You turn your attention to the next stack of signatures. This one is for a small collection of poetry, the paper delicate, almost translucent. You adjust your grip on the needle, preparing to begin the meticulous process all over again. The soft thwip, pull resumes a quiet, rhythmic pulse in the heart of the bindery. You lose yourself in the task, the outside world fading away, replaced by the immediate reality of paper thread and the promise of a finished book. It's not glorious work, not the stuff of ballads and grand pronouncements, but it is honest work, essential work, the kind of work that underpins the very fabric of knowledge and culture in a city that hungers for both. The delicate dance of needle and thread has given way to a new set of challenges, each demanding a different kind of precision. Your fingers, having just mastered the rhythmic sewing, now adapt to the feel of sharp blades and the subtle nuances of various materials. You've moved from the sewing frame to the tooling and materials section, where the raw components of a book begin their transformation into a tangible, durable object. The air in this part of the workshop carries distinct scents. The sweet, earthy aroma of cured leather, the faint tang of glues, and the occasional metallic whiff from sharpened knives. Laid out on your bench are a variety of leathers, supple calfskin, robust goatskin, and even some more exotic choices for special commissions, like the fine Moroccan leather that gleams with a deep, rich luster. Each hide possesses its own unique character, its own grain, its own scent. You learn to assess them, feeling for imperfections, understanding how they will stretch and mold. Your first task in this phase often involves paring the leather. This is where you use a specialized, extremely sharp paring knife to thin the edges of the leather, especially where it will be folded over the boards of the book. It's a painstaking process, requiring a steady hand and a keen eye. Too much, and the leather tears; too little, and the edges will be bulky and unsightly. You scrape away thin slivers, the rhythmic shave of the blade against the leather, a quiet testament to your concentration. It's a mainstream historical fact that the skill of leather paring was a hallmark of a master binder, as it directly impacted the elegance and durability of the binding. A poorly pared edge would chafe and wear quickly. You also learn about the different types of paper used in books, not just the main body paper, but the end papers that connect the book block to the covers, and the specialized papers for decorative elements. Some are crisp and smooth, others fibrous and absorbent. Monsieur Dubois insists on using only the finest papers for his higher-end commissions, explaining that cheap paper will yellow and become brittle, with age ruining the integrity of the binding. You've seen examples of old books returned for repair, their cheap paper crumbling like dry leaves, a stark reminder of the importance of quality. Then there are the tools themselves, a fascinating array of metal and wood. Your paring knife is just one. There are bone folders used for creasing paper and shaping leather, hammers for rounding and backing the spine, presses of various sizes for compressing the book block, and an entire collection of specialized finishing tools made of brass and iron. These finishing tools, used for applying decorative elements, are particularly captivating. They come in an astonishing variety of patterns: delicate floral motifs, intricate geometric designs, and individual letters for titling. Each tool is carefully heated on a small, dedicated stove until it's just the right temperature. Too cold, and the impression is weak. Too hot, and it scorches the leather. It's a precise art requiring instinct as much as measurement. You recall a quirky tidbit you once heard about the tools some binders believed that passing their tools down through generations imbued them with the spirit of past masters, making them more effective. While you don't necessarily believe in tool spirits, you do feel a connection to these implements, recognizing that countless hands have held them, countless books have been shaped by their touch. They are extensions of a long lineage of craftsmanship. Historians still argue whether the extensive specialization of tools seen in 19th century binderies was a natural evolution of craft or a precursor to the mechanization that would eventually dominate the industry. For you, it's simply the way things are done, each tool serving a specific, indispensable purpose. You move on to board cutting, selecting thick, sturdy pasteboard that will form the covers of the book. You measure carefully using a steel ruler and a sharp knife, ensuring that the boards are perfectly square and precisely the right size for the book block you're working on. There's no room for error here. Miscut boards will lead to a lopsided or ill-fitting cover, a glaring flaw that can't be easily hidden. The sound of the knife scoring the board, followed by the satisfying snap as you break the piece free, is another distinct sound of the workshop. As you work, you realize that this stage is about transformation. You are taking disparate elements, the stitched paper block, the chosen leather, the sturdy boards, and beginning to unite them. It's like watching an architect assemble a building, brick by brick, piece by piece, knowing that each component plays a vital role in the overall structure. The potential of the finished book is slowly, meticulously taking shape under your hands. You're not just building a book. You're building a vessel for ideas, for stories, for history itself. And sometimes you even get to choose the color of the leather. Today, it's a deep forest green for a collection of scientific treatises, a color that reminds you of dense ancient woods. Not exactly a page-turner in the traditional sense, but still a book that will hopefully stand the test of time, proudly displaying its green skin. The morning's relentless pace finally slows a welcome lull in the methodical hum of the workshop. The scent of leather and paste, which has become as familiar as the air you breathe, is momentarily replaced by the tantalizing aroma of simmering stew and the earthy scent of fresh bread. It's midday meal time, a brief but essential respite from the continuous demands of the craft. As the large workshop clock, its pendulum swinging with a slow, deliberate tick, finally chimes noon, a collective sigh of relief seems to ripple through the bindery. Tools are carefully set down, rags wiped across dusty benches, and the low murmur of conversation gradually rises in volume. Monsieur Dubois, usually stoic and focused, allows a faint smile to touch his lips as he signals the break. You join your fellow apprentices and journeymen in the small, cramped back room that serves as a makeshift dining area. It's nothing grand, just a couple of sturdy wooden tables and some mismatched stools, but it's a place of camaraderie and momentary release. The atmosphere here is starkly different from the quiet concentration of the workshop. Here, the strict hierarchy relaxes, if only for a short while, and jokes are exchanged, complaints aired, and stories shared. Your midday meal is modest as always, a hearty, thick pea soup, perhaps, with chunks of potato and a bit of cured pork, served with generous slabs of dark, crusty bread. Sometimes, if you're lucky, there might be a slice of cheese or a few pickled vegetables. It's simple, nourishing fare designed to replenish the energy expended during the demanding morning. You eat quickly, savoring each bite, knowing that the second half of the day will be just as rigorous as the first. The food, though basic, is a mainstream historical fact of daily life for most working-class Parisians, hearty, calorie-rich, and affordable. Luxury was for the bourgeoisie, not for the calloused hands of a craftsman. As you eat, you listen to the chatter around you. Jean-Pierre, the senior apprentice, is recounting a story about a particularly eccentric client who insisted on having his entire collection of natural history books bound in crocodile skin. A true logistical nightmare, apparently given the difficulty of working with such tough, irregular hides. You chuckle, imagining the scene. One of the journeymen, a grizzled veteran named Antoine, with a perpetually cynical expression, grumbles about a recent commission, a massive theological tome that required an insane amount of gold tooling. "My eyes were watering for a week," he declares, rubbing his temples dramatically. You recall a quirky tidbit you heard from Antoine during one of these breaks. He claims that the best way to get a stubborn leather hide to cooperate is to whisper sweet nothings to it, complimenting its grain and suppleness. He even demonstrated it once, muttering softly to a piece of goatskin, much to the amusement of the younger apprentices. You don't quite believe it, but you have to admit, Antoine's leather work is always impeccable. Maybe there's something to it, or maybe it's just years of experience. Historians still argue whether the superstitions and ritualistic practices common in artisanal trades were genuine beliefs, or merely ways to cope with the uncertainties and difficulties of manual labor. The conversation naturally drifts to shop gossip. Who's behind on their quota? What new techniques is Monsieur Dubois experimenting with, and, of course, the ever-present topic of wages and the cost of living in Paris. The price of bread, the rising rents, the latest taxes. These are the real concerns of daily life, far removed from the grand pronouncements of politicians or the intricate plots of the novels you bind. You learn that one of the smaller binderies across town recently closed its doors, unable to compete. It's a sobering reminder of the precarious nature of your trade. Despite the often gruff exterior of the journeymen, there's a genuine sense of camaraderie within the group. You are all bound by the shared experience of the bindery, the long hours, the demanding work, and the satisfaction of transforming raw materials into beautiful, functional objects. You learn as much from these informal conversations as you do from Monsieur Dubois' direct instruction, practical tips, shortcuts, warnings about common pitfalls, and the unwritten rules of the workshop. As the meal winds down, Monsieur Dubois himself joins the table, though he typically eats in his private office. He takes a moment to survey the room, his gaze resting briefly on each of you. He offers a rare paternalistic smile. "Work hard, gentlemen." He says, his voice softer than usual. A well-bound book is a testament to the skill and dedication of its maker. It's a legacy. His words, simple as they are, resonate deeply. They are a reminder of the higher purpose behind your seemingly mundane tasks. You finish the last of your bread, using a piece to wipe the remnants of soup from your bowl. The clatter of spoons against ceramic bowls begins to subside, replaced by the scraping of chairs, as everyone prepares to return to their stations. The short break is over. The second half of the day with its rounding backing and covering awaits. The brief respite has recharged your body and mind, preparing you for the precise, focused work that lies ahead. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand, stand up and stretch, feeling the familiar pull in your shoulders. It's time to get back to the leather and the presses. The brief respite of the midday meal fades into memory. As you return to your workstation, the renewed energy from the simple sustenance quickly channeled back into the demanding physical and mental tasks of bookbinding. The workshop hums with a renewed intensity, the sounds of industry picking up where they left off. You feel the familiar ache in your shoulders and the subtle tremor in your fingers, reminders of the precision your craft demands. You're now moving into the crucial stages of rounding and backing processes that transform the flat-sewn book block into a robust, curved form, ready to receive its covers. You pick up a sewn book block, its spine still flexible and raw. Your first tool for this stage is a large, heavy hammer with a rounded face. You lay the book block on a flat surface, placing a heavy board along one side of the spine. Then, with deliberate rhythmic blows of the hammer, you begin to strike the spine, gently coaxing the paper into a convex curve. Thump, thump, thump. It's a surprisingly violent act for such a delicate object, but the blows are controlled, each one designed to compress and shape the paper, not damage it. This rounding is essential. It not only gives the book its characteristic curved spine, which looks aesthetically pleasing, but it also helps the book open more easily and keeps the foredge from sagging over time. You adjust the book block, moving the board, striking from different angles until the curve is even and symmetrical. You wipe a bead of sweat from your brow, the exertion making you warm. Next comes backing, which goes hand in hand with rounding. You clamp the rounded book block firmly in a backing press, leaving a small lip of the spine exposed. With the hammer again, you tap and persuade the outer sections of the book block to fan out slightly over the edges of the press boards, forming a hinge. This shoulder, created by backing, is crucial. It's what the covers will eventually butt against, providing a strong, durable attachment point. This process, known as rounding and backing, is a mainstream historical fact and a cornerstone of traditional bookbinding, significantly increasing the book's durability and functionality. Without it, books would quickly become misshapen and fall apart with use. You focus intently, listening to the subtle sounds the paper makes as it yields to the hammer's force. Too much force, and you can damage the paper. Too little, and the shoulder won't form properly. It's a delicate balance, a testament to the years of practice required to master this seemingly simple task. You feel a deep satisfaction as you remove a perfectly rounded and backed book block from the press, its spine now a strong, elegant curve, its shoulders neatly formed. It's ready for the next step, a significant leap towards becoming a complete book. You recall a quirky tidbit Monsieur Dubois once shared during a rare moment of philosophical reflection. He claimed that the rounding and backing process was akin to breaking the spirit of the paper, forcing it to conform to the will of the binder, much like a stubborn horse. While you wouldn't go that far, you understand the metaphor of transforming raw material into a disciplined, functional object. Historians still argue whether the emphasis on perfectly uniform rounding and backing in the 19th century was primarily driven by aesthetic preferences or by evolving industrial demands for mass production. For you, it's just the right way to do it. Your hands move to the next stage, preparing the boards. You've already cut the pasteboard to the correct size in the morning, and now it's time to attach them. You measure carefully, ensuring they are perfectly aligned with the shoulders you've just created. On the book block, you apply a strong, thick paste made from flour and water to the end papers, the first and last sheets of the book that will connect to the covers. You press the boards firmly onto the pasted end papers, ensuring a secure bond. You then place the entire assembly into a nipping press, a small hand-operated press to apply even pressure and allow the paste to dry properly, creating a strong, lasting adhesion. The silent pressure of the nipping press is a quiet promise of permanence. As you wait for the paste to dry on one book, you move to another, ready to begin the covering process. This is perhaps the most visible and outwardly impressive stage of bookbinding. You select a piece of the prepared leather, running your hand over its smooth, cool surface. You lay the book block onto the leather, carefully positioning it to ensure there's enough overlap for the turn-ins, the edges of the leather that will be folded over the inside of the boards. You apply a thin, even layer of paste to the back of the leather. This requires a delicate touch. Too much paste makes the leather soggy and hard to work with too little, and it won't adhere properly. The rhythmic swish, swish of the paste brush is another sound added to the workshop's symphony. You carefully lay the leather over the boards, aligning the spine, smoothing out any wrinkles or air bubbles with your hands and a bone folder. This is where the aesthetic appeal of the book truly begins to emerge. The color, the texture of the leather, the clean lines of the spine, it all comes together under your skilled hands. You then cut the leather precisely at the corners, forming neat, crisp angles that will fold over perfectly. You carefully fold the turn-ins, pressing them firmly to the inside of the boards. This is where the true neatness of the binding becomes evident, as sloppy corners can ruin an otherwise fine job. It's a precise, almost surgical process, demanding unwavering attention. The smell of the paste, slightly sweet and earthy, fills your nostrils as you work a constant companion to your efforts. The afternoon settles into a quiet, focused intensity, each movement purposeful, each action contributing to the gradual, satisfying transformation of raw materials into a finished masterpiece. With the core structure of the book firmly in place, the book block rounded and backed, and the covers meticulously attached, you move into the final, often most visually striking stages of the bindery process, dyeing and decorative flourishes. This is where the book truly transcends its functional purpose and becomes an object of art, reflecting the taste of its owner and the skill of its maker. The air in this section of the workshop is different, carrying the faint, sometimes sharp scent of dyes and the metallic tang of heated tools. You approach the small, specialized area where these delicate operations take place. Bottles of various colored dyes, brushes, and an array of intricate brass and iron finishing tools are neatly arranged on a felt-lined bench. These tools, with their delicate patterns and letters, are heated on a small, low-flame stove, their metal glowing faintly, radiating a gentle warmth. Your first task in this stage might be dyeing the edges of the book block. While some books are left with natural raw edges, many are treated to protect them and add an aesthetic finish. You might use a dark, rich stain or perhaps a speckled effect, achieved by flicking dye from a stiff brush onto the edges. You clamp the book block securely, exposing only the edges you intend to dye. Then, with careful, even strokes, you apply the chosen color. The dye soaks into the paper, transforming its plain white or cream surface into a vibrant hue, adding a touch of understated elegance. This practice of dyeing book edges often with intricate patterns was a mainstream historical fact, particularly popular for personal libraries to protect against dust and adorn the books. Next comes the magic of gold tooling, or more broadly, the application of decorative elements to the leather cover. This is arguably the most skilled and artistic part of the binder's trade. You select a book whose leather cover has been perfectly applied and allowed to dry. The chosen design, perhaps a geometric pattern, a floral motif, or the owner's crest, has been carefully selected. You take the appropriate brass tools, heated to just the right temperature, a delicate balance that can make or break the design. Too cool, and the impression won't take. Too hot, and the leather will scorch, leaving an irreparable burn mark. You first make a blind impression, pressing the heated tool onto the leather without gold, creating a subtle, debossed pattern. This helps to guide your hand for the subsequent application of gold leaf. Then comes the shimmering gold itself. You carefully lay a delicate sheet of gold leaf over the blind impression. The gold leaf, incredibly thin and fragile, floats almost weightlessly in the air. You then take the heated tool again and press it firmly and precisely over the gold leaf, transferring the intricate design onto the leather. The heat and pressure fuse the gold to the leather, leaving a gleaming, permanent impression. Sizzle, press lift. The excess gold leaf is brushed away, revealing the brilliant metallic design. You recall a quirky tidbit: some master binders used to claim they could tell the purity of gold leaf by the sound it made when pressed onto leather. A faint, almost musical hum, if it was perfect. While you haven't developed such an ear, you marvel at the transformation how a simple sheet of gold can elevate a plain leather cover into a work of art. Historians still argue whether the elaborate gold tooling of the 19th century was a genuine expression of artistic craftsmanship, or simply a display of conspicuous consumption by the wealthy elite. For you, it's simply the most challenging and rewarding part of the job. The application of titling is equally precise. You select individual brass letters from a type case, carefully arranging them in a brass holder to spell out the book's title and author. The letters are then heated, and like the decorative tools pressed onto the spine or front cover, transferring the gold onto the leather. Each letter must be perfectly aligned, perfectly spaced, forming clean, crisp words. A single, crooked letter can mar the entire aesthetic. Your hands, usually strong and steady, become incredibly delicate, almost trembling with the concentration required for this task. You might also add other decorative elements, such as colored inlays of leather pressed into recessed areas of the cover or hand-painted details. Each additional flourish adds to the book's uniqueness and value, reflecting the bespoke nature of many commissions. The workshop, once filled with the clatter of presses, now has a quieter, more focused energy, punctuated by the faint sizzle of heated tools and the soft whispers of concentration. As you complete a particularly intricate piece of gold tooling, stepping back to admire the gleaming title on a deep red leather spine, you feel a surge of pride. It's a testament to patient skill and an unwavering commitment to beauty. This book, once a stack of loose papers, is now a finished, elegant object, ready to take its place on a discerning collector's shelf. The afternoon wears on, and the final details of numerous books come to life under your hands, each one a small shining victory in the grand tapestry of Parisian craft. As the day wears on, the meticulous work of binding continues, but your attention also shifts to the flow of life beyond your immediate workbench. The clientele and commissions that breathe financial life into the bindery. You hear the chime of the small bell above the main door as a client enters, and your ears instinctively perk up, curious to discern the nature of the new arrival. Each client represents a unique challenge, a new set of demands, and a glimpse into the diverse intellectual and social landscape of 19th century Paris. Monsieur Dubois handles most of the direct interactions, his demeanor shifting subtly from the stern taskmaster of the workshop to a more polished, deferential merchant. You observe from a respectful distance as he greets a woman whose silk dress rustles elegantly as she moves. She carries a small stack of well-worn pamphlets, their paper yellowed with age. You overhear snippets of their conversation. She's a scholar, a quiet intellectual, and these are rare philosophical tracts she wishes to preserve, to protect them from the ravages of time and frequent handling. Her requests are precise, sturdy, but unassuming bindings, perhaps in a practical dark calfskin, with simple gold tooling that denotes authorship and title without ostentation. She values longevity and clarity above all else. This focus on preserving scholarly works through binding was a mainstream historical fact, as personal libraries were crucial for intellectual pursuits before the widespread availability of public libraries. Later, a different kind of client arrives, a gentleman whose expensive waistcoat and self-important air speak volumes. He carries a single, beautifully printed volume, likely the first edition of a popular novel or a collection of poetry. His demands are entirely different. He wants something extravagant, a binding that will impress his peers and reflect his wealth and cultured taste. He speaks of Morocco leather, gilt edges, and elaborate flourishes, perhaps even requesting his family crest to be embossed in gold on the cover. Monsieur Dubois nods, his expression unreadable, but you know from experience that such commissions, while lucrative, are often the most demanding in terms of intricate tooling and painstaking detail. It's a balance between artistic integrity and commercial necessity, a dance the master performs with practiced ease. You recall a quirky tidbit you once heard from an older journeyman who swore that the best way to tell a genuinely discerning client from a mere show-off was by how they handled the books. The true connoisseur, he said, would cradle the book gently feeling the texture of the leather, appreciating the craftsmanship while the superficial one would merely flip through it, admiring the sparkle of the gold. You secretly test this theory in your mind as you watch the current client, noting his almost dismissive handling of the sample books. Historians still argue whether the demand for increasingly ornate bindings in the 19th century was solely driven by personal vanity, or if it also reflected a genuine appreciation for the artistry of the craft. From your vantage point, it feels like a bit of both a confluence of practical need, scholarly pursuit, and plain old human desire for beautiful things. Sometimes the commissions are truly unique. There was the opera singer who wanted her entire collection of scores, bound in vibrant theatrical colors, each one a different hue of red or blue, with musical motifs tooled onto the spine. Or the botanist who requested his botanical illustrations be bound in green vellum, a material that, while beautiful, was notoriously difficult to work with, due to its delicate, almost parchment-like quality. Each of these special requests pushes the boundaries of your skills, forcing you to adapt and innovate. You also learn to discern the urgency of each project. Some clients are in no hurry content to wait months for a truly bespoke piece. Others, often those preparing gifts or needing books for immediate use, demand a quicker turnaround, leading to long evenings spent hunched over your bench, illuminated by the flickering gaslight. The steady influx of new commissions, regardless of their nature, is a reassuring sign of the bindery's continued prosperity in a competitive market. It means work for you and a future in this fascinating, demanding trade. The bell chimes again, signaling the departure of the aristocratic gentleman, and the workshop returns to its usual focused hum. You pick up your tools, ready for the next task, knowing that the demands of the city's readers and collectors will continue to shape your day. As the afternoon wears on, a unique opportunity presents itself, a momentary escape from the four walls of the bindery. Monsieur Dubois, needing a specific type of specialized abrasive paper that the usual suppliers don't carry, dispatches you to the bustling market day in a nearby square. It's a welcome change, a chance to stretch your legs and experience the vibrant chaos of Parisian life outside the quiet, focused world of books. You step out of the bindery and into the sensory explosion of the city. The narrow side street quickly opens onto a wider boulevard, and then suddenly you are enveloped by the immense pulsating energy of the open-air market. It's a kaleidoscope of sights, sounds, and smells. The air is thick with 1,000 competing aromas: ripe cheeses, pungent fish, freshly cut flowers, roasted chestnuts, and the ever-present undertone of horse and humanity. The square is a sprawling, disorganized tapestry of stalls, each hawker shouting their wares with a booming enthusiasm. You navigate through a dense, jostling crowd, an endless river of people from all walks of life. Women in practical aprons haggle fiercely over the price of vegetables, their voices rising in sharp, staccato bursts. Well-dressed bourgeois ladies, accompanied by servants, glide through the throng, their noses perhaps a little too high, avoiding direct contact with the common folk. porters, their backs burdened with enormous sacks of produce, weave through the crowd with surprising speed, barking warnings as they go. You pass by a stall overflowing with every imaginable kind of fruit-glistening apples piled high next to pyramids of plump grapes. Next, a butcher's stall displays glistening cuts of meat attracting a buzzing cloud of flies. The bakeries fill the air with the intoxicating scent of warm bread and sweet pastries. You even spot a vendor selling exotic birds in cages, their colorful feathers, a startling contrast to the drab market environment, chirping a chaotic melody. This vibrant, noisy, and often chaotic scene was a mainstream historical fact of daily life in 19th century Paris, central to the city's commerce and social fabric. You recall a quirky tidbit you heard from a stable hand once he claimed that the market always had a ghost smell, a faint, lingering aroma of all the produce that had been sold and consumed there for centuries. While you don't detect any spectral sense, you do notice the sheer volume of waste and refuse a constant reminder of the lack of proper sanitation in such crowded urban areas. You deftly step over a puddle of questionable liquid, trying not to think too hard about its origins. Historians still argue whether the bustling markets of Paris were primarily economic hubs or also significant social spaces for community interaction and the exchange of ideas. For you, it's a bit of both, a place where business is done, but also where the vibrant pulse of the city is most palpable. As you search for the specific supplier of abrasive paper, you occasionally catch snippets of conversation, political rumors, local gossip, complaints about the latest price increases. A street musician, his violin a little out of tune, scrapes out a jaunty tune, his hat placed hopefully on the ground for offerings. A conjurer attracts a small crowd with card tricks, his patter smooth and rapid. You even see a pickpocket being apprehended by a stout gendarme, the ensuing scuffle briefly disrupting the flow of the crowd before it reforms, seemingly unbothered. It's a reminder of the raw, unfiltered reality of urban life. Finally, after navigating several false leads and asking for directions from a bewildered cheese vendor, you find the right stall. It's tucked away in a quieter corner, specializing in various industrial supplies rather than foodstuffs. You quickly make your purchase, the rough, abrasive paper feeling surprisingly delicate in your hand compared to the rough textures of the market. You pay with the few coins Monsieur Dubois gave you, eager to escape the clamor and return to the relative peace of the bindery. As you turn to leave the market, you take one last look at the swirling mass of humanity, the vibrant colors, the cacophony of sounds. It's an overwhelming spectacle, a testament to the sheer energy and resilience of the Parisian spirit. The bindery, with its quiet focus and methodical pace, feels a world away from this raw, untamed heart of the city. You quicken your step, clutching your purchase, ready to return to your familiar workbench, ready to transform the rough into the refined. The sensory assault of the market fades behind you as you re-enter the quiet, ordered sanctuary of the bindery. The afternoon sun, now lower in the sky, casts longer shadows across the workshop, giving the air a mellow golden hue. The rhythmic sounds of hammering, the faint scrape of knives on leather, and the hushed whispers of conversation are a comforting contrast to the recent urban cacophony. You hand the abrasive paper to Monsieur Dubois, who nods his approval, a silent acknowledgement of a task well done. With the brief errand complete, you return to your station, picking up where you left off. The focus now shifts fully to the intricate finishing touches that transform a mere covered block of paper into a polished, completed book. You might be working on the end bands, those small decorative bands of thread that you meticulously sew onto the head and tail of the book's spine. These aren't just for show. They reinforce the structure of the book, protecting the spine from wear and tear. You choose colored threads, often silk, weaving them around thin cords to create a small, neat cap. It's a tiny detail easily overlooked by the casual observer, but for a skilled binder, it's a mark of quality and attention. You then move to pasting down the end papers. These are the decorative, often marbled or patterned sheets that line the inside of the covers and connect them seamlessly to the book block. You apply a thin, even layer of paste to the end paper, carefully positioning it and smoothing out any air bubbles with a bone folder. This is a moment where precision is paramount. Any wrinkles or misalignment will be glaringly obvious in the finished product. The end papers frame the first and last pages, serving as a visual invitation into the book's contents. This careful integration of end papers was a mainstream historical fact, often providing the first aesthetic impression of a book's quality. As you work, the light outside begins to soften the vibrant yellows of afternoon, slowly bleeding into the muted oranges and purples of twilight. The gas lamps in the workshop are lit, casting a warm, slightly flickering glow that makes the gold tooling on finished books gleam even more brilliantly. The silence in the workshop deepens, broken only by the sounds of your craft and the occasional murmur from Monsieur Dubois, who remains at his own bench, meticulously working on a particularly intricate commission. You reflect on the day's progress, the journey of raw materials, flat sheets of paper, pliable leather-sturdy boards, transformed by your hands into a coherent, beautiful object. Each book represents countless hours of patient labor, a succession of precise steps, each dependent on the successful completion of the last. You think of the early morning, folding the delicate sewing, the powerful hammering of rounding and backing, the careful preparing of leather, and the final, dazzling application of gold. It's a testament to the power of craft, the human ability to create something enduring and meaningful from seemingly simple components. You recall a quirky tidbit you overheard from Antoine, the cynical journeyman who once mused that the best bookbinders were essentially book doctors, constantly performing surgery on damaged volumes, bringing them back to life. While you hope most of your work is creating new life, rather than resuscitating old, you appreciate the sentiment, the idea of healing and preservation. Historians still argue whether the shift from individual artisanal workshops to larger, more industrialized binderies in the late 19th century represented a loss of craft tradition or a necessary adaptation to meet growing demand. But now, you are still firmly in the world of handcraft, where every book bears the unique imprint of its maker. As the workday draws to a close, you engage in the final, crucial step, pressing. Finished books are placed between smooth boards and then into a large standing press. The heavy iron screw is turned, exerting immense pressure on the books. This final pressing helps to set the paste, flatten the covers, and ensure the book maintains its shape perfectly. You tighten the screw, feeling the resistance, knowing that this quiet, sustained pressure will finalize the book's form. This pressing stage was a critical mainstream historical fact for ensuring the longevity and proper shape of bound books, often lasting overnight. With the books now in the press, their transformation complete, you begin the evening routine. Tools are carefully cleaned and put away: knives, honed, brushes, washed. You sweep the small area around your bench, collecting the leather scraps, paper trimmings, and dust that are the byproducts of a day's labor. The workshop, once a hive of activity, slowly quiets down, the last of the apprentices and journeymen finishing their tasks. Monsieur Dubois gives a final inspection of the day's work, a critical eye surveying the newly pressed books. He offers a rare contented sigh, a sign of a productive day. You gather your few personal belongings, feeling the pleasant weariness that comes from honest, satisfying work. The long, arduous day is almost over, and the promise of rest beckons. The last echoes of the bindery's activity fade behind you as you step out into the crisp, cool air of the Parisian evening. The chaotic symphony of the day has transformed into a more subdued melancholic melody. The sun has dipped below the horizon, painting the western sky in bruised purples and fading oranges, and the gaslights that line the streets have flickered to life, casting pools of warm, dancing light on the wet cobblestones. Your journey, homebound through gaslight, is a quiet, reflective counterpoint to the morning's bustling commute. The narrow streets, once choked with carriages and teeming with pedestrians, are now less crowded, though still alive with the murmur of conversations and the occasional clatter of a late-night delivery cart. The smells of the market have dissipated, replaced by the faint earthy scent of damp stone and the sweet, lingering aroma of cheap tobacco smoke wafting from the open doors of cafes and taverns. The air is cooler now, carrying a hint of the approaching night. You pull your worn coat a little tighter around you, feeling the day's fatigue settle into your bones. The gaslights, revolutionary for their time, cast long, distorted shadows that dance as you walk. They paint the familiar buildings in a new ethereal glow, transforming the city into something both mysterious and beautiful. You pass by tall, elegant townhouses, their windows glowing with the warm light of oil lamps, hinting at the lives of comfort and luxury within. You glimpse families gathered around dinner tables, laughing and talking, and you feel a pang of longing for your own simple home. This spread of gaslight illumination across Paris was a mainstream historical fact, gradually replacing dim oil lamps and fundamentally changing the city's nighttime character. You think of the books you've handled today, the philosophical treatises, the popular novels, the scientific journals, each one destined for a different life, a different reader. It's a strange feeling to touch so much knowledge, to shape so many stories, yet to remain a quiet, unseen craftsman in the background. You pass a small, unassuming bookstore, its windows dimly lit, displaying a few bound volumes. You pause for a moment, recognizing the familiar curve of a spine, the glint of gold tooling, and you wonder if it was perhaps crafted in a bindery like yours. You recall a quirky tidbit you once heard about the gaslights themselves. Some people believed that the flickering flames housed tiny, mischievous spirits, whispering secrets to those who walked alone at night. While you don't believe in gaslight spirits, you do feel a sense of quiet companionship from their steady, comforting glow, guiding your path through the deepening twilight. Historians still argue whether the introduction of gaslight truly improved public safety in cities, or if it merely changed the nature of urban crime, moving it from total darkness to dimly lit alleys. For you, it just makes the walk home a little less perilous. The sounds of the city at night are different too. The sharp cries of vendors are replaced by the muffled strains of distant music from a dance hall, the occasional mournful wail of a cat, and the soft, rhythmic clip-clop of a lone carriage passing by. The grand, bustling boulevards are quieter now, more contemplative. You notice the architectural details of the buildings, the intricate ironwork balconies, the carved stone facades, details often lost in the bright clamor of the day. Your thoughts drift to your meager supper awaiting you, perhaps a simple vegetable stew or a piece of cheese and bread. It will be enough. You feel the familiar ache in your fingers, the slight stiffness in your back, the pleasant exhaustion that comes from a day of honest, strenuous work. It's the kind of tired that leads to deep, dreamless sleep. As you draw closer to your own humble dwelling, the gaslights become fewer, the streets narrower and darker. The grand facades give way to more modest apartment buildings, their windows often unlit, their residents likely already asleep. You pass by a small laundromat, its windows steamed up, the rhythmic slosh of washing echoing from within. Even late into the evening, Paris continues its relentless work. You quicken your pace, slightly eager for the warmth and quiet of your own room. The day, with all its demands and small victories, is drawing to a close, and the promise of rest is a welcome beacon in the deepening night. The journey home culminates as you turn the final corner, the familiar, unassuming facade of your apartment building emerging from the dim gaslight. The street is quiet now, the earlier echoes of the city having faded to a low hum, like a distant, tired beast. You push open the heavy wooden door, the familiar creak, a comforting sound, a signal that you are truly home. The air inside is cooler, a little stale, carrying the faint scent of old wood and the lingering traces of cooking from earlier in the day. You ascend the narrow, creaking stairs, each step a familiar rhythm after countless evenings. Your small attic room at the very top of the building is a sanctuary from the relentless demands of the city and the workshop. You push open your door, and the darkness within welcomes you. There's no grand hearth or plush furnishings here, just the bare essentials, your straw mattress on its simple frame, a small wooden chest that serves as a table, and a solitary flickering oil lamp on a stand. You light the lamp, its warm, unsteady glow pushing back the shadows, revealing the humble simplicity of your living space. You shed your worn coat, draping it over the back of your wooden chair, and then carefully remove your sturdy boots, placing them neatly by the door. The relief of bare feet on the cool wooden floor is immediate and profound. You stretch again, a deep, full-body stretch that cracks every joint, releasing the accumulated tension of the day. Your evening routine is as simple and unadorned as your room. You retrieve a small basin of water and a piece of coarse soap, washing the grime of the city from your hands and face. The cool water is refreshing, washing away the dust and the lingering scent of leather and paste. You feel your muscles relax, the day's labor slowly receding from your consciousness. Dinner is a frugal affair. Perhaps the remnants of this morning's bread, now a little harder, accompanied by a small piece of aged cheese or a handful of dried fruit. If you were truly fortunate and managed to save a few sous, there might even be a small, single-serving portion of a humble soup from a street vendor. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, your mind no longer consumed by the precise movements of bookbinding, but free to wander. This simple, often repetitive diet was a mainstream historical fact for the working class, prioritizing sustenance over variety or luxury. You might spend a few quiet moments before sleep, perhaps mending a tear in your shirt by the dim light of the lamp, or simply sitting in contemplation. You might even pull out a small worn volume, not one of the grand expensive commissions from the bindery, but a cheap, well-loved novel you've acquired, perhaps a thrilling adventure story or a collection of popular poetry. You don't get much time to read in the workshop, so these quiet moments are precious. You trace the words with your finger, letting the story unfold in your mind, a stark contrast to the physical act of creating books. You recall a quirky tidbit you once heard about Parisian apartments. Apparently, some residents believed that the spirits of previous occupants lingered in the walls, whispering stories to those who would listen. You don't hear any spectral whispers in your humble room, but you do feel the echoes of countless lives lived within these old walls, a sense of quiet history that permeates every creaking floorboard. Historians still argue whether the stark divide between the opulent lives of the Parisian elite and the meager existence of the working class contributed more to social stability or revolutionary unrest. For you, it's simply the reality of your world, a world where survival often dictates every choice. As the lamp begins to flicker, signaling its dwindling oil, you prepare for bed. You arrange your straw mattress as best you can, seeking out the least lumpy spots. You slip out of your clothes, leaving them folded neatly on the chest, and pull on a clean, though worn, linen nightshirt. The room is quiet now, save for the distant murmur of the city, a soft, almost imperceptible hum that serves as a lullaby. You blow out the lamp, plunging the room into comfortable darkness. The coldness of the floor is a distant memory replaced by the warmth of your rough blanket. You close your eyes, the images of the day, the smooth leather, the gleaming gold, the chaotic market slowly fading into the encroaching quiet. The day's work is done, and the deep restorative sleep of the physically weary beckons. As you settle into the familiar embrace of your straw mattress, the fatigue of the day begins to give way to a different kind of sensation. The quiet hum of ambition, the whisper of future aspirations. Your body may be tired, but your mind, free from the immediate demands of the workshop, begins to wander, to dream of master craftsmen. You imagine a future far grander than your humble attic room, a future where you are no longer the apprentice, but the artisan in charge, a master binder with your own flourishing workshop. You picture it clearly in your mind's eye, a spacious, well-lit bindery, perhaps larger than Monsieur Dubois', with rows of presses and shelves laden with exquisite leathers and fine papers. The air would still carry the beloved scent of leather and paste, but it would be mingled with the subtle aroma of success, of independence. You'd have your own apprentices, eager young men and women, whom you would guide with the same stern but fair hand that Monsieur Dubois has guided you. You'd pass on the secrets of the trade, the subtle nuances of paring leather, the perfect temperature for gold, tooling the precise tension for sewing, a resilient spine. You envision your own clientele, not just the demanding aristocrats or the quiet scholars, but perhaps a new generation of patrons seeking unique artistic bindings that push the boundaries of the craft. You would experiment with new designs, new materials, perhaps even revive forgotten techniques. You see yourself hunched over a workbench, not just replicating designs, but creating entirely new patterns, your hands moving with an effortless grace, born of decades of experience. You imagine the satisfaction of unveiling a truly magnificent binding, knowing that every stitch, every cut, every gilded detail is a testament to your own skill and vision. This aspiration for independence and mastery was a mainstream historical fact for many apprentices, representing the peak of their professional journey. You recall a quirky tidbit you heard from an old master binder, long since retired, who used to say that a true master craftsman could tell the quality of a book simply by feeling its weight in their hands as if the very essence of its construction spoke to them. You wonder if one day you'll possess such an intuitive understanding of your craft, a silent language between you and the books you create. Historians still argue whether the notion of a master craftsman was primarily a measure of technical skill, or if it also encompassed a broader understanding of artistic principles and business acumen. For you, it feels like it encompasses everything. You think of the sheer variety of books you would bind, not just the solemn academic tomes or the frivolous novels, but perhaps journals of exploration, travelogues from exotic lands, or even new scientific discoveries, each one demanding a binding that reflects its unique content. You would be a guardian of knowledge, a silent partner in the dissemination of ideas, your work ensuring that the stories and discoveries of your time would endure for generations. The path to mastery, you know, is long and arduous. It requires not just technical skill, but patience, resilience, and an unwavering dedication. You would need to save every sou, working tirelessly, learning every facet of the trade from the most mundane preparation to the most intricate finishing. You'd have to understand not just the craft, but the business, sourcing materials, managing accounts, attracting clients, perhaps even navigating the unpredictable tides of fashion and demand. You imagine the day you finally achieve this dream, the small brass plaque beside your own workshop door bearing your name. Monsieur, your name here, Maître Relieur. The pride in that moment would be immeasurable, a culmination of years of tireless effort, sacrifice, and an unwavering passion for the humble yet profound art of bookbinding. It's a dream that fuels you, a beacon in the often challenging reality of your daily life. It's the promise of autonomy, of respect, of leaving your own indelible mark on the world, one beautifully bound book at a time. The images of your future workshop, bright and bustling, slowly begin to fade as sleep pulls you deeper into its embrace, replacing conscious aspirations with the quieter, more fragmented landscapes of dreams. As the vivid aspirations of your future workshop begin to recede, the immediate reality of your humble room reasserts itself, but in a softer, gentler way. The last flickers of thought fade, replaced by the profound quiet that descends upon the city in the deepest hours. This is night's embrace in Paris, a time when the relentless energy of the day finally yields to stillness, when the world outside your window seems to hold its breath. You lie still, your body a comfortable weight against the straw mattress, enveloped by the cool darkness. The distant sounds of the city are now attenuated, softened by the night. The sharp clip-clop of hooves on cobblestones is gone, replaced by the occasional muffled rumble of a distant carriage, its wheels sounding like a sleepy sigh. The shouts of vendors are long silenced, and even the murmur of conversations from the street below has faded. What remains is a subtle ambient hum, the heartbeat of a sleeping metropolis. You might hear the gentle drip of water from a leaky gutter outside, or the soft rustle of leaves in a breeze, sounds that are usually drowned out by the daytime clamor. Perhaps a lone cat's plaintive cry pierces the silence for a moment before dissolving back into the quiet. It's a peaceful, almost meditative silence, allowing your mind to truly unwind after the day's intense focus. The cold wooden floor, which had felt so stark in the morning, is now a distant memory replaced by the comfortable warmth beneath your rough blanket. Your eyelids feel heavy, a pleasant weight, and your breath becomes deeper, more even. The images of the bindery, the feel of leather beneath your fingers, the glint of gold leaf slowly begin to blur around the edges, transforming into the fragmented illogical landscapes of nascent dreams. You might see a book floating through the air, its pages rippling like wings, or a hammer striking sparks from a piece of paper. These are the last conscious connections to your day. Before the world of sleep fully takes over, you recall a quirky tidbit, perhaps, from an old Parisian folktale that claimed the city's gargoyles came alive at night, whispering the secrets of the day to each other from their perch on ancient buildings. While you know it's just a story, you can almost imagine the old stone faces of the buildings across the street, silent and watchful, absorbing the city's hidden narratives. Historians still argue whether the deep quiet of Parisian nights in the 19th century was genuinely profound, or if city dwellers simply became accustomed to a higher baseline of noise compared to modern standards. For you now, it feels undeniably peaceful. The air in your small room is still and cool. There are no sudden disturbances, no jarring sounds. It's a profound, enveloping stillness, a stark contrast to the relentless energy of the morning and the focused intensity of the afternoon. This quiet is a precious commodity, a balm for tired minds and weary hands. It's the time when the boundaries between wakefulness and dream begin to blur, when the day's worries dissolve into the limitless expanse of slumber. You feel your body sink deeper into the straw mattress, your muscles loosening your breathing, becoming a soft, rhythmic tide. The last lingering thoughts of incomplete tasks or demanding clients gently float away. There's only the quiet now, the profound, comforting quiet of a city. At rest, a world pausing before the relentless rhythm of a new dawn begins. Your consciousness drifts a small boat on a vast, calm ocean, slowly being pulled under the surface by an unseen current. The last conscious thoughts of the day dissolve completely, replaced by the deep, restorative currents of sleep. You are now fully immersed in rest and anticipation, your mind and body recharging, preparing for the demands of another dawn in the fascinating, demanding world of 19th century Parisian bookbinding. The external world with its gaslights and cobblestones, its leather and presses, has retreated, allowing your inner world to take over. Your breathing is slow, steady, a soft whisper in the quiet darkness of your room. The gentle hum of the distant city is now part of the silence, an almost imperceptible drone beneath the profound stillness. There are no immediate sensations, no pressing concerns, just the tranquil blankness that precedes the landscape of dreams. Your muscles, having been worked hard throughout the day, are now completely relaxed, heavy, and still. You might experience fragmented, fleeting images, echoes of your day's work, the smooth curve of a book's spine, the shimmer of gold leaf under the gaslight, the rhythmic motion of your hands stitching paper, or the brief, chaotic tableau of the market. These are not fully formed dreams, but rather residual impressions, like faint ripples on the surface of a pond after a stone has been thrown. They are reminders of the tangible world you inhabit even as you drift further from it. You might also feel a sense of quiet contentment, the satisfaction that comes from a day spent in purposeful labor, from creating something tangible and lasting with your own hands. There's a profound dignity in your craft, a connection to centuries of tradition and skill, and that feeling, even in sleep, resonates deeply. This deep rest, allowing for physical and mental recovery, was a mainstream historical fact, crucial for the productivity of manual laborers, providing the necessary respite from grueling work hours. You recall a quirky tidbit, perhaps a half-forgotten lullaby from your childhood about a little star guiding lost dreamers back to their beds. It's a simple comforting thought, a final anchor before conscious awareness fully departs. Historians still argue whether the importance of sleep was fully understood in the 19th century, or if its restorative properties were merely observed without scientific explanation. For you, in this moment, it is simply a profound necessity, a welcome oblivion. The world outside your window is completely dark now, the last glow of gaslight having faded, replaced by the deep velvet blackness of a moonless night. The city sleeps around you, a silent, vast entity, its millions of inhabitants wrapped in their own individual slumbers, their dreams weaving an unseen tapestry across the urban sprawl. You are one tiny thread in that immense fabric, a humble apprentice bookbinder, dreaming of master craftsmanship. Yet for now, simply enjoying the profound peace of complete rest. You drift deeper, lighter now, almost weightless. The soft darkness cradles you a gentle lullaby. The day's efforts have earned this quiet repose, this complete surrender to the night. There is nothing to do, nowhere to be, no task awaiting, no deadline to meet. Just the soft, rhythmic inhale and exhale, the peaceful quiet, and the profound, silent anticipation of the morning when the world will begin anew, and another day of shaping stories and binding beauty will commence. Sweet dreams, my friend, sweet dreams.